Welcome back, everybody. We're continuing now our breaking news coverage. A final report from the special grand jury in Georgia that investigated former President Trump's attempts to overturn the state's 2020 presidential election. That report has just been released, and the headline here is we're finding out that the grand jury recommended charges against way more than the 19 people who ultimately were indicted by DA Fani Willis.
38 people. 38
double, right?
People are on this list, and some of the we have the vote breakdown here. We're going through this as we speak, real time, live TV, and some of the vote breakdowns are exactly the same as people who were indicted. And so we're trying to understand the
legal calculus.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
They did.
Yeah.
Political correspondent Kevin Cirilli live for us in D.C. standing by again. And Joe St. George as well. Joe, we can start with you. What's your initial read here? Again, these are people who DA Willis decided not to indict for one reason or another. So what does this really mean and signify? What's the takeaway here?
Takeaway is that if you're in Senator Graham's office right now, you're breathing a big sigh of relief, because an indictment was a lot closer than I think certainly a lot of us who are on Capitol Hill in Washington a lot previously knew. I mean, yes, the vote was different than, let's say, what former President Trump was indicted on. Mr. Trump had 20 yes votes to 1 no vote. Senator Graham's vote total was 13 yes votes to 7 no votes, 1 abstention. But still, this is also something, this is reverberating where you guys are across Georgia, too. I think from a national perspective, Senator Lindsey Graham's recommendation is probably the national headline. But in Georgia politics, Perdue,
and Kelly Loeffler.
Big names in Georgia Republican politics. And real quickly here, I think how likely this indictment could have happened, perhaps it's a warning sign for the next election, the next time, of how close officials, let me say this, how it may serve as a deterrent the next time there is something in which Mr. Trump or someone's team wants them to get involved with. Certainly, you want to help your friends, but you don't want to get an indictment. And today we're learning, guys, just how close some big names in Republican politics were close to an indictment.
Well, we saw so many more names get involved when that happened. Very publicly get involved and asking people for money for even to stop the Democrats because they're stealing the election. I mean, we very much saw those fundraising efforts go out. Kevin, what as you continue to read through this, any new takeaways?
Yeah, Senator Lindsey Graham had a call with Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger, a Republican, and that was pulled out of the January 6th committee. In that call, according to Raffensperger, Graham was suggesting to him to look at the votes around Atlanta, and so Graham disputes the characterization of the call, but that specific call that was gleaned by the congressional committee, the January 6th committee, clearly weighed on the Georgia grand jury. So that's on a day in which we're talking about Peter Navarro being found guilty of being in contempt of Congress, that congressional committee clearly had an impact in what they were able to find out. Separately from that, Boris Epstein. Boris is someone who ran command center, for lack of a better term, at the Willard Hotel across the street from the now former Trump Hotel. I'll finish this point. I'll try to be as quick as I can on this. Boris Epstein is someone who is still appearing with Trump, has Trump's ear currently. And so he was able to not get recommended. I'd be fascinated to know the conversation between Trump and Epstein over the next couple of days and how that impacted would have on the relationship. And then finally, Loeffler and Perdue, now former senators, both of the Republican Party, for them to be, working with the former president's team to try to get the results overturned, to have them wrapped into this as well. Just a fascinating insight into where this grand jury was looking, and I would just add perhaps a foreshadowing and a reminder that folks have an obligation to, when there's a legitimate election, acknowledge the results.
Well, there's our national headline here. Senator Lindsey Graham, very close to indictment, but the DA decided not to charge him and others. The question now is why, and what, if anything, does it mean going forward in the case that they escaped indictment here. It's fascinating. More news after this break. Stay with us, everybody.